Parents in the anime world, they're not always guaranteed. In fact, when it comes down to parents in the anime world, pretty much the only guarantee is you probably won't see them that often. And that is absolutely true in the Naruto universe. See, whether it's Sasuke, Naruto, Rock Lee, or Sakura, having your parents around doesn't really seem like much of an option. And this is because of the golden anime rule once highlighted to us by Oda that parents are antithetical to the idea of dreams, which is a weirdly positive way to rebrand orphans, but is also slightly unfortunate, at least in the Naruto universe. See, because, well, yes, if Naruto had a loving family home that he was raised in, would he have been a very different character that probably wouldn't have tried to achieve as much as he did in his own timeline? 100%. However, the fact that we had to wait until the 4th Great Shinobi World War to see Naruto and Minato team up together as two pillars of ridiculous strength is kind of a shame. And the thing is, Naruto and Minato are actually kind of lucky in the regard that they ever got to team up at all. See, kind of like LeBron and Bronny James, it's very rare for a father to stick around in the ninja world long enough to be able to team up with his son one day. But that's a shame, because so many parent-child duos inside the Naruto universe would be insanely broken. And while we did get to see some of them come into fruition, the vast majority we didn't. Which is why today I want to talk about those duos. The strongest possible combinations of a parent and a child in the Naruto world. Because today we're talking the top 10 strongest parent-child duos in Naruto. But before we get to ranking anything, guys, please, for me, like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. So, there are a lot of possibly legendary parent-child duos in the Naruto universe. Because even though Hagoromo at the end of the story said your parents don't matter, you have to become who you have to become based off your own merit, a lot of the powerful characters in Naruto have powerful parents. Or powerful grandparents. See, because whether it's Shisui and Kagami, or Granny Chiyo and Sasori, Hashirama and Tsunade, lineage seems somewhat important in the Naruto universe. And therefore, in order to keep this list at a comfortable 10 entries, we're gonna lay down a couple of rules here. Actually, really just one rule. In order to be considered for this list, duos have to be biologically related and only one generation apart. That is to say, that we're only considering fathers and mothers of their own children. And a lot of you might be thinking, oh, Nick, that seems like a redundant rule. Of course, if we're talking about parent-child duos, we're only gonna talk about parent-child duos. But essentially what I'm saying here is I'm not taking into consideration grandparents and their grandchildren. So you won't see Kagami and Shisui, you won't see Hashirama and Tsunade, you won't see Granny Chiyo and Sasori. And no, I won't be taking into consideration people like Tsunade, Shisui, or Sasori's parents because we don't know who they are. On top of that, we also won't be using adoptive children. So you won't be seeing people like Gaara and Shinki or Naruto and Kawaki. And with those rules out of the way, that's everything. So let's get into the list. Now, I know that I just said that you won't be seeing Gaara and Shinki, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to be seeing Gaara and his father, Rasa, because that is exactly who we have coming up at our number 10 spot. And the fact that two separate Kazekage working together at our number 10 spot should put into perspective just how insane this list gets. The feats for both of these characters are relatively insane. More insane for Gaara than they are for Rasa, but still, Rasa's got some pretty crazy feats. See, obviously Gaara was able to accomplish things like stopping one of Madara's meteors, protecting the entirety of the Hidden Sand Village from one of Datara's C3 bombs, sealing away multiple Kage level threats in the 4th Great Shinobi World War with his magnet release enhanced sand prisms, one of which was his actual father, Rasa, being so beloved by Shikaku that even after Shikaku was extracted from him, Shikaku continued to allow him to control sand. And in Boruto, Gaara's feats got even more impressive, as he went toe-to-toe with the likes of Oroshiki and was able to seal him in a Grand Sand Mausoleum for a couple of hours, mind you, after being weakened by Oroshiki's chakra fishing rod thing. And if you want to say, oh, that's anime canon, oh, that doesn't count. Well, Gaara also went toe-to-toe with Kinshiki in a winning fight and was able to dodge and block attacks from a fused Momoshiki. While he later got absolutely trounced by a fused Momoshiki, the fact that he was even involved in that fight in the first place talks about how incredibly strong he is in the Boruto universe. And while he may not be having the greatest time right now in Two Blue Vortex, that shouldn't take away from the sheer amount of ridiculous feats that we've seen from Gaara. I mean, at 13 years old, he covered an entire battlefield with sand and casted Sand Coffin on the entire thing to kill Orochimaru's golden child. failed. And without a version 2 curse mark transformation, Kimimaro would have died right there. Now, unfortunately, we know a lot less about Rasa than we do about Gaara, because Rasa's killed by Orochimaru prior to the Konoha Crush arc, and while some people will use this point to argue that Rasa was weaker than Orochimaru because Orochimaru killed Rasa, it was a surprise feat, so we can't necessarily use that as a metric to gauge how powerful Rasa was. What we absolutely can use to gauge how powerful Rasa was, though, however, is the fact that on multiple different occasions, Rasa was able to seal away the full power of Shukaku when it raged out of Gaara. And while Shukaku is by far and away not the most powerful tailed beast, in fact, some people will tell you he's the weakest, being able to 1v1 any of the tailed beasts is a feat that less than 20 or so people could accomplish in the Naruto universe. And sure, Rasa's gold dust kit was advantageous in battle against Shukaku, as Rasa was able to simply incorporate his heavier element gold into the sand body of Shukaku and use it to seal away his powers. But if we're disqualifying feats against tailed beasts because the user has an advantageous skill set in battle against tailed beasts, well then we can't say that Hashirama sealing the other 8 tailed beasts with his wood release is all that impressive, can we? Outside of this, obviously, prior to his death, Rasa was the most powerful person in the Hidden Sand Village. And as a born magnet release user coming from the Kazekage family, that makes a fair amount of sense. Since we're talking about 2 Kage from the same family, let's move to our number 9 spot, which is A, also known as the 3rd and 4th Raikage. Listen, in a lot of villages, the role of Kage is slightly hereditary. Inoki is the grandfather of Korotsuchi. The 3rd Raikage is the father of the 4th Raikage. Rasa is the father of Gaara. Hell, the first 2 Hokage were brothers. And the 5th Hokage was the granddaughter of the 1st Hokage. Now, this is mostly because time and time again in the Naruto universe, it's been proven that strong people make strong babies. And therefore, those people who are strong enough to become a Kage later create children who are also strong enough to become a Kage. In that case, it's no different in the Hidden Cloud. However, just because the 3rd and 4th Raikage are father and son doesn't mean that their movesets are completely identical. Well, both of the A's use the Raikage special of the Lightning Cloak that involves things like their Lightning Lariat and their Hell Stab. The 3rd Raikage's bag was a bit deeper than the 4th's. See, because while yes, the 3rd Raikage was known as the perfect shield for his stand in the 3rd Great Shinobi World War against 10,000 shinobis by himself, he was able to fend off this army for 72 hours using the defensive capability of his Lightning Cloak and the offensive capability of his Hell Stab. The 3rd Raikage was also known for his usage of a technique that the 4th Raikage never uses, and that ability is none other than Black Lightning. Now we're not entirely sure how Black Lightning differs from regular Lightning Release. However, we know that Black Lightning was created by the 3rd Raikage and passed down to Darui, who uses it in the 4th Great Shinobi World War. And through the usage of Black Lightning, Darui is able to do things like Lightning Release Black Panther, which is essentially just Lightning Beast Tracking Fang, but with Black Lightning. That is to say that Darui creates a Black Panther out of lightning and then launches it at enemies. However, while we don't know a huge amount about Black Lightning, we know that being able to use it is in honor, as Darui has a kanji tattoo on his shoulder that matches that of the 3rd Raikage's that denotes that he has the honor of actually being able to use this jutsu. Now, in terms of feats, both the 3rd and 4th Raikage's lists are pretty insane. The 3rd Raikage is obviously most well known for covering the retreat of the Hidden Cloud army that was on its way back to the Land of Lightning in the 72-hour battle against 10,000 shinobi that earned him the moniker of the Perfect Shield. But on top of this, 3rd Raikage is also well known for going toe-to-toe with the likes of Gyuki, one of the strongest tailed beasts in existence, one-on-one whenever it would rage out of Blue Beat. And the fact that the reason that Gyuki has one of its horns chopped off is because the 3rd Raikage, A, sliced it off in one of their 1v1 battles. So all that is to say that the 3rd Raikage is as strong as Gyuki, in arguably the 2nd strongest tailed beast out. And that's kind of insane. And the 4th Raikage falls into a similar camp. The 4th Raikage is considered to be as powerful as Killer Bee. We know that they're equally powerful because the 4th Raikage is the other half of a double lariat equation with Killer Bee, and therefore, if the 4th Raikage wasn't able to equal Killer Bee's power, then their double lariat wouldn't work. On top of this, after the death of Minato, the 4th Raikage is considered the fastest person on Earth, and he holds on to that title because of his Lightning Cloak until Naruto unlocks KCM-1. And the 4th Raikage's strength and speed was so well respected across the entirety of the ninja world that he was literally placed in charge of the Shinobi Alliance. Now, feats-wise, he actually didn't accomplish all that much in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, but we do see when Sasuke pulls up on the 5 Kage Summit that he slaps the taste out of Sasuke's mouth. So while his feats aren't technically as impressive as the 3rd Raikage's, this is a man that went toe-to-toe with the likes of Minato and fought him to a relative draw. And that's saying something. We know a lot more about the 4th Raikage than we do about one half of the equation of our number 8 8 entry because coming up at number 8, we got Sakamoto Hatake and Kakashi Hatake. Now, some of you might already be rattling your cages saying,
Nick, how are you gonna put Kakashi and Sakamoto this low?
But trust me, they need to be this low. Obviously, Sakamoto Hatake is the king of the what-ifs in the Naruto universe. He's the White Fang of the Leaf, the original run-on-site order ninja, even though he technically never actually had a run-on-site order. Minato's the only person who ever had an official run-on-site order. But people were terrified of Sakamoto Hatake to the point where when they saw Kakashi hopping around as a child, they're like,
Oh my god, is that Sakamoto Hatake?
but then they're like, no. That's a kid. And also, Sakamoto Hatake is dead. Anyways, as the king of what if, Sakamoto Hatake is one of the most talked about people in the Naruto universe because it was established that at one point, Sakamoto Hatake was stronger than all of the 3 legendary Sannin combined. On top of that, during the Second Great Shinobi World War, Sakamoto Hatake was responsible for the offensive marched into the Land of Wind that killed Sasori's parents. And therefore, we know that Sakamoto Hatake came into combat against legends like Granny Chiyo and maybe even Hanzo the Salamander. Considering the only person who could kill Sakamoto Hatake was, you know, that means that Sakamoto Hatake scales to people like Prime Granny Chiyo, one of the strongest ninjas in Naruto history. So you can kind of understand why he's known as the king of what-ifs. But fortunately, all the questions that we ever needed answered about Kakashi got answered. Kakashi's list of feats is a mile long. He fought Zabuza, the demon of the mist, to a standstill twice, took out dozens of hidden sand shinobi during the Konoha Crush arc, battled against Nagato and Itachi in albeit losing efforts, but still he was in the fight, has battled against perfect clones of Jiraiya and Kashin Koji, recreated Madara's Sage Art Purple Lightning attack with his own Purple Lightning version of Chidori that doesn't require the Sharingan, unlocked DMS in the 4th Great Shinobi World War that gave him access to the strongest Susanoo we've ever seen, the ability to pop shuriken in and out of the dimension that they're in to appear behind people and slice them in half. Speed Blitz Kaguya for one of the only clean hits anybody landed on her. Tried during the 4th Great Shinobi World War to warp off the head of the Ten Tails using Kamui. And like, maybe would have been able to do it. It's fair to say that without Kakashi, Team 7 wouldn't have been victorious in the battle against Kaguya, and the world would have been destroyed. And when Kakashi no longer has access to that form, or the Sharingan of any kind, it's been established now that the chakra suck of the Sharingan, that Kakashi's chakra pool has increased multiple times over, to the point where he was able to maintain a quartz-enhanced mud wall around an entire village for 12 hours while the village was being bombarded with cannon attacks. I mean, Kakashi put out an infinite water source created by Hagoromo using a Fire Phoenix ability. Kage Kakashi is different. So Nick, why are him and Sakamoto so low on this list? Well, because coming up at our number 7 spot, we have Might Dai and Might Guy.
Oh, Nick, there's no way you're putting Might Dai and Might Guy above Sakamoto and Kakashi.
Yeah, I am. Listen, I understand that Might Guy isn't exactly much of a threat nowadays. Might Dai and Might Guy have some of the highest peaks we've ever seen in Naruto, point blank period. Now sure, both of these scenarios absolutely would have come at the cost of their lives, because Might Dai, even though he was referred to as the Eternal Genin because of his inability to ever pass the Chunin exams, even well into his adulthood, was able to save Might Guy and the rest of his Genin team from the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. On top of this, mind you, the strongest ever iteration of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. This iteration of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist were said to be so powerful that they could literally overturn a country by themselves. I mean, we were talking about a national level fighting force. However, when they cornered Might Guy's Genin team on a spy mission into the Hidden Mist, Might Dai was there to save the day. And he did so by activating his 8th gate. And while the anime would tell you that Might Dai only killed 4 out of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist on that day, the manga, which I trust more in this circumstance, would tell you that Might Dai killed 6 out of 7 of the Swordsmen of the Mist, leaving the only member of the strongest generation of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist alive being Fugaku, the wielder of Samehada, who was later cut down by Kisame anyways, so it wasn't like surviving did him all that much good. And while it's basically the only feat we have for Might Dai, that's a pretty good feat. But the list of feats that we have for Might Guy is about as long as the list of feats we have for Kakashi. He, like Kakashi, took out dozens of Jonin in the Konoha Crush arc, battled against Kisame 3 separate times, and eventually came out victorious against the dude who was named the Tailless-Tailed Beast, one of the strongest members of the Akatsuki. And while sure he had to open to the 7th gate to defeat Kisame without Samehada, he still won. Add that into the fact that Madara, undoubtedly one of the strongest ninjas in the history of Naruto's entire timeline, who dedicated his entire life to combat, acknowledged that Might Guy was the greatest taijutsu user he ever fought. And Might Guy, with the opening of 8th Gate, was able to bend space-time with a kick that kicked a hole in Madara that without plot armor, he wouldn't have healed from. And for all intents and purposes, we can say that for a small amount of time, Might Guy was on equal fighting grounds with one Rinnegan Jubidara, an entity with so much strength that Hagoromo feared that he would reach his level of strength. So yeah, the combined forces of the only two people we've ever seen awaken to the 8th Gate would be something fearsome. And while I can make the argument that if Might Guy and Might Guy were battling against Sakumo Hatake and Kakashi Hatake, that if they opened to the 8th Gate, Kakashi could just warp himself and his father into the Kamui dimension to wait for a little bit until the two of them died from overexposure from the 8th Gate, that's disingenuous to the conversation surrounding their true level of power. But enough about these relative side characters, let's get to our main cast here. Because coming up at number 6, we have Fugaku and Sasuke. Now listen, a rule that I forgot to mention at the beginning of this video is that I'm only going to be using one iteration of a parent and their child. I recognize that Fugaku and Itachi would also be a great pick here, but I'm only going to be talking about a parent and their strongest child, and Sasuke is Fugaku's strongest child. Now unfortunately, kind of like Sakumo Hatake, we don't know a whole lot about Fugaku's life. We know that Fugaku was in consideration for replacing Hiruzen as the 4th Hokage. We know that he was considered to have an equal status on the battlefield as Minato during the Third Great Shinobi World War, which does loosely imply a flee on sight order of some kind, though it's never officially stated. And we know that Fugaku is referred to as the Wicked Eye Fugaku, which is a moniker most likely given to him because of his exploits on the battlefield that apparently were so incredibly impressive that he was elected as the head of the Uchiha clan, which seems to imply that during his time alive, he was the strongest Uchiha in the Uchiha clan, which is the only confirmed MS user in the Uchiha clan at that time outside of Shisui and Itachi, makes a fair amount of sense. So if we assume that Fugaku was somewhere in the region of Minato's power level, he is a resilient and powerful entry on this list of powerful father-son duos. But obviously not as powerful as the deuteragonist of Naruto's entire story, Sasuke. See, because, well, yes, Fugaku may have been a DMS wielder, Sasuke was not only an EMS wielder, but also an EMS and 6-tome Rinnegan wielder. In terms of feats, Sasuke has done literally everything. He was 50% responsible for sealing Kaguya and a secondary moon in her own dimension. He was the temporary host of all 9-tailed beasts, making him a pseudo 10-tails Jinchuriki that battled against Naruto in the Valley of the End. He was able to go toe-to-toe with that version of Naruto using things like Indra's arrow to cancel out some of the biggest Rasen Shuriken tailed beast ball combinations we've ever seen. He diced the meteor in a literal second, saving Konoha from annihilation. He established in a light novel that he believed he'd be able to go one-on-one with a Kaguya level threat, and then kind of proved it while fighting Kinshiki and Momoshiki simultaneously. He boxed with fused Momoshiki in base right alongside Naruto, and while he got absolutely thrown around by the likes of Jigen and Ishiki, at least he was in the fight. On top of that, he finished off the battle between Shin Uchiha and Sakura, his wife, even though Shin Uchiha is probably roughly as strong as Madara was when Madara was alive, and he alongside Naruto boxed one Rinnegan Jubidara into a corner, while also being 50% responsible for pulling all 9 of the tailed beasts out of Jubito. He was able to cover an entire battlefield in Amaterasu flames by combining it with a giant Rasen Shuriken from Naruto, and he's the reason that the 4th Raikage had to learn to wipe with another hand. The deuteragonist of this story, and obviously ridiculously powerful, but that only gets him to the number 6 spot on this list, at least for the moment, because coming up at number 5, we have the only logical next entry on this list you could possibly think of, and Minato and Naruto. Yes, the combination of Minato and Naruto are absolutely stronger than the combination of Sasuke and Fugaku, and my god, am I now just realizing that us not getting Fugaku back to life in the 4th Great Shinobi World War was a robbing. Like, why not use that as an opportunity to flesh him out as a character? We did it for Rasa. Anyways, when it comes down to it, by the time that the 4th Great Shinobi World War rolled around, Minato and Naruto were basically the same person. Minato popped out of Edo Tensei with a perfect Toad Sage mode and KCM2. And the only difference between Minato and Naruto at that point is that Minato could use Flying Raijin, which should have technically made Minato stronger than Naruto, but because Naruto is half Uzumaki and the reincarnation of Asura, and also the main character of the story, Naruto ended up being stronger. However, honestly, if we just want to talk about the feats of both of these two during the 4th Great Shinobi World War, that alone would be enough to justify them being in the 5 spot. I mean, Minato was able to teleport multiple thousands of members of the Shinobi Alliance outside of a 4-walled seal created by 4 Kage that was built specifically to make sure that the 10 Tails wouldn't be able to go anywhere, but when the 10 Tails was like, I'm just gonna bomb the inside of this, Minato literally had to teleport thousands of people outside of the barrier to make sure that they didn't go up in flames, and he did it. That is a Barry Allen teleporting an entire city out from under a nuclear explosion to a hill miles away level feat. On top of that, during the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Minato found himself in multiple, very tight spots against crazy high-level opponents, like Jubito and Jubidara, both of which he was instrumental in the defeat of. Tie that into Minato's feats that he had long before he got a KCM 2 form, like being the only official ninja in the entirety of Naruto's history to get a fleet on-site order, being elected as the 4th Hokage as the youngest ever Hokage, 1v1ing Obito and Kurama in the same night and basically winning both fights, and also stalemating Killer B and A simultaneously in combat. And Minato's got one of the most impressive list of feats out of anybody in the Naruto universe. And do I really need to do a rundown on what Naruto accomplished in his own story? He boxed Fused Momoshiki one-on-one, tanked an attack from Toneri that cut a moon in half, activated Baryon mode and put a beat down on Ishiki, the strongest being we've ever seen in the Naruto universe. It's half the reason that Kaguya was sealed, just like with Sasuke, was half the equation that boxed one Rinnegan Jubidara into a corner, befriended the evil half of one of the most powerful entities in existence in Kurama, 1v1'd the 6 Paths of Pain and won, and basically everything else that happened in Naruto. He is the spoon that stirs the drink. That's why the story's named after him. But enough about Naruto. Let's get back to what many people would identify as the real main character of Naruto, Sasuke. But this time we're talking about Sasuke and Sarada.
Are you saying that Sarada's more powerful than Fugaku?
I mean, maybe not yet, but she will be. On top of that, technically Fugaku's MS isn't canon. Sarada's is. I'm sorry, Fugaku's MS is canonized by the light novels. I apologize for spreading misinformation. Sarada's MS is newer, which helps. And on top of that, Sarada has feats. Not only was Sarada one of the youngest people to ever awaken an MS, whose abilities we don't quite know yet, but she was also responsible for the defeat of one of the inners of Kara in Boro, as her Chidori that ripped through Boro's core was the only reason that Boro was ever put in a situation to lose control of his body. And while yes, Boroshiki would be the one responsible for the technical defeat of Boro, Sarada's Chidori was absolutely very helpful. On top of this, Sarada has shown the ability to dodge attacks from Hidari and land what should have been a fatal blow on him, and that's a Divine Tree version of her father with dual Rinnegans. And she's also about to be involved in a very important fight against Matsuri and Ryu in the upcoming 2 Blue Vortex chapters. And the simple fact that Kashin Koji believes that she stands a chance in that fight proves that she is very, very powerful. Maybe already more powerful than Fugaku. However, her feats aren't nearly as impressive as the list of feats that Boruto already has, which is why Naruto and Boruto are our number 3 entry on this list.
Nick, how can the 2 MCs of 2 different mangas be at number 3?
There's some crazy strong parent-child duos in the Naruto universe, I'm sorry. But yes, like with Sasuke, we've already gone over Naruto's feats. But Boruto's feats at this point are objectively becoming more impressive than even Naruto's feats. As Boruto, mind you, was technically the person responsible for the slaying of Momoshiki in the first place, and while Boruto was basically completely uninvolved in the battle against Jigen and Ishiki, Boruto has become the sole pillar of strength holding ninja society up in 2 Blue Vortex, as Boruto is currently basically the only person who's been established to be able to 1v1 Shinju, as Boruto has already shown insane feats of strength in 2 Blue Vortex, like one-shotting Kawaki, one-shotting Code, defeating Hidari so completely that Hidari turned back into a Soul Thorn and being identified as a credible threat by Jura. Ties into the fact that Boruto is doing all of this without accessing his karma marking, and that Boruto, rather casually, will not try and beat Mitsuki in full Snake Sage mode in a fight. And we should have known that Boruto was a menace when we saw in the early chapters of 2 Blue Vortex that Boruto considered going 1v4 against all of the Shinju. Now, it's important to note here that the combination of Naruto and Himawari would also be ridiculously powerful, but like I said, with Sasuke and Itachi, we're only going with the strongest sibling here. And while Himawari's got crazy potential, that potential certainly hasn't bypassed Boruto, at least yet. But since we're talking about powerful siblings, we might as well talk about our number 2 entry on the list, because at number 2, we got Hagoromo and Asura. Yes, you could absolutely make the argument that Indra is the more powerful of the 2 brothers, but I think we all understand that the reincarnation cycle has proven to us that Asura is always the more powerful reincarnation, because of the power of friendship. Listen, I understand that Naruto and Boruto are the 2 MCs of their respective stories, but there is no reason, and I mean no reason, for us to believe that Naruto is stronger than Asura. Naruto is a reincarnation of Asura, and the filler showed us that Asura is able to do basically everything that Naruto was able to do. In fact, Asura created it. And mind you, Asura was doing it without being the Jinchuriki of Kurama, just raw chakra mechs based off Nothing. And Hagoromo's obviously the Sage of Six Paths, the literal god of ninjas, a 10-tails Jinchuriki with access to the creation of all things, the reason that chakra exists in humans to this day. He is an extra-dimensional being that is infinitely powered by the Pure Lands, Ninja Heaven, who's able to cross dimensions and give his power to beings in separate dimensions like Naruto and Sasuke. Power-ups, mind you, that infuse them with so much power that they were able to battle against his very own mother and seal her. While yes, there's a solid possibility that both Naruto and Boruto have bypassed the strength of Hagoromo, there's really no way for us to prove that. And so, for now at least, they exist at the number 2 spot. But unfortunately, because Asura and Indra aren't as powerful as their grandmother, they're not going to be able to scratch the number 1 spot, which is obviously Kaguya and Hagoromo. Listen, Kaguya is the only Otsutsuki we've ever known to have children. And while Hamura could also possibly be placed in this conversation, as Hamura is kind of confirmed to have a Tenseigan, I think Hagoromo, the Sage of Six Paths and the God of Shinobi, is probably the stronger out of the 2 children that Kaguya had. And listen, what do I need to tell you about Kaguya that you haven't heard already? She was so powerful before eating a chakra fruit that she was able to rip Ishiki in half. And while yes, she caught him by surprise, still, she was able to do damage to Ishiki. She then ate a chakra fruit, became the pseudo god of the world. When she got sick of humanity, she cast Infinite Tsukiyomi, started building an army of white Zetsu to fight against the Otsutsuki clan, which she obviously believed that she could do if she was prepping for the battle. Was the only person that we've ever seen awaken a Rinne Sharingan, outside of Madara, who only awoke a Rinne Sharingan because of his connection to Kaguya. And while she's talked down on by other Otsutsukis like Momoshiki, Naruto, Sasuke, Hagoromo, and Hamura had to seal her because killing her just straight up wasn't an option. She's able to rip parts of dimensions to her current location, which is absolutely insane. Use several Kekemora, which is a combination of all 5 elemental nature chakras and yin and yang, like the expansive True Seeker orbs, the Sword of Nunabuko with Ash all-killing Bone. She's able to, like with all other Otsutskis, use Yamatsu Hirasaka, which allows for her to travel between dimensions with ease, and is the primordial mother of chakra on Earth. So yes, her and her son, who is the god of Shinobi on Earth, are the strongest parent-child duo in Naruto history. I know that's not exactly the most interesting outcome, but that's the truth of it. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. Do you truly believe that Kaguya and Hagoromo are the strongest parent-child duo in Naruto history, or do you think that it's Naruto and Boruto? Let me know in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Joke's on you, Nick, it's actually 10-10 in Metal Lee. Don't know how I didn't think of that.